Meeting of the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee. It is 5 o'clock, and we're called to order. Is there any public comment?
No, there's not.
No public comment. All right. On to committee business. The first item of business is approval of the May 9, 2023 minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from May 29, 2023 as written for approval.
All right. And I'll second it. It's been approved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It carries unanimously. Next, a report on the PAC operations from Mr. Brian Hoffman.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Hoffman with the Federal Way Performing Arts and Events Center here giving the April 2023 monthly update for the PAC operations. This information was previously submitted. For the month of April in our theater, we had Always Patsy, the off-Broadway show on Sunday, April 2nd. We had Jehovah's Witness service on April 4th. The Federal Way Symphony performance, in addition with their 2 rehearsals. Then we had Colin Hay concert on April 21st. We had a Punjabi concert on April 22nd. And then we had the Auburn Symphony performance with 2 rehearsal days as well. In the event space, we had our monthly chamber luncheon event. We had the Pacific Northwest Software User Group, their banquet, which was about approximately 75 to 85 individuals, a retirement party for Jarvis Financial, and then a celebration of life in the event space. We participated in a handful of our monthly meetings, such as our Oakview Group booking calls, our foundation monthly board meetings, the LTAC committee meeting, city council meetings, and Arts Commission meeting. And then we had the stage repainted in April, and thanks with the partnership with the Parks Department, some landscaping done on Parks Appreciation Day. We provided some of our marketing recap with some website metrics, as well as social media and some advertising avenues that we did throughout the month for the various shows and events. And then on the second page, there is a year-over-year comparison, April 22 versus April 2023. Very similar with events. We were down a little bit on ticketed events by 4, but only 400 shy of the number of tickets that we sold the previous year. Our gross ticket revenue was down. Obviously, that correlates with 4 less ticketed events, so you can see the direct correlation with that. Food and beverage revenue almost doubled, and a little bit down in rental revenue. For the forecast, however, for the remainder of 2023, we are right in line or beating budget numbers through the end of April. And then in June, which, a good portion of these events have already taken place, we had a wonderful partnership with the Arts Commission on a 3-day Arts Explosion event with close to 700 folks through the doors for those 3 days. Again, a chamber luncheon. On Friday, we had 4 graduations with the Federal Way Public Schools. We had a bodybuilding event on Saturday, and then we had a sold-out Washington Korean Ensemble event on Sunday. Today's event, with many of you being in attendance with the city event. And then on Friday, we have Piff the Magic Dragon, a comedian/magician. And then throughout the weekend, we have a private rental Goodman Real Estate multi-day event. The end of the week, a group called Acts on Stage, which is a pipeline event with in partnership with Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, I believe is their group, and then a Celebration of Life next week. And happy to answer any questions in regarding the PAC operations.
Yes, Lydia.
Yes, thank you. With the Spanish congregation, is it a weekly event or is it just a one-time thing?
It's just one time. They have been, it's an annual event for the past 3 years that they do it one evening, usually from 4 o'clock till about 9 p.m.
Okay. And then with all these other activities, do we have, do we know if they're renting hotel spaces and does it generate any LTAC funds?
So in April, I can tell you, Always Patsy had hotel rooms. That was approximately, I believe it was 7. The Colin Hay concert, that had, I believe it was 5 hotel rooms. And these are, the numbers that I'm giving you is just production or show-related personnel. I don't know from the general public if anybody came into town and spent the night. And then that is it for the month of April for those events. Again, I don't know if people traveled from out of town and spent the night in a hotel or not for any of those events.
Thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. I have 2 things. One, the Arts for Youth matinees. Are we doing any of that at this point? Will that happen before the end of the school year? Well, the end of the school year is next week, so probably
Yeah,
not.
no, we worked or had numerous conversations with the Federal Way Public Schools in getting at least one in this school year. Unfortunately, that did not come to fruition. We do currently, right now, have 9 of them tentatively scheduled starting in October of '23 through the spring of 2024.
So with the grant money from that you guys got, you were gonna hire a coordinator for that?
Correct.
Did you hire that person?
Yes, we did.
And is it a part-time position?
That is a part-time position, correct?
So do they work throughout the summer?
Yes, they do.
Are there any children's programming in the PAC in the summertime?
Currently, no.
Okay. And my second question is, the last 2 events I've been at the PAC, anyway, one was the Arts Explosion, which was done really well, and I want to thank you and your staff for all the work that you did, that you put into that too. And then the Senior Resource Fair. When the PAC was built, there was budget issues, finding enough money to build the building, but we didn't have necessarily the money to put chairs and tables inside the event area. And, you know, there are currently, I think, 6 or 7 benches. And I know for the resource fair, we actually moved some of those benches out where seniors could sit because they needed to sit somewhere. So my question is, we want to make the PAC attractive for people to want to come and sit and maybe look at the mountain or whatever when they're in there for an event. Is there any way we can get some chairs in there without having to move those benches around? Because we moved the benches around for Arts Explosion too, so people could sit.
Correct. So when you say chairs, are you referring to like a banquet chair or more of a lounge sit-down chair?
Sit-down chair.
So we could. And to answer your second question, or in response to, we move those benches for every event that we have. Because, for an example, if they're kind of down the hallway going towards the restrooms, a particular event might need that space because we put a buffet down there because they're using the entire lobby and event space for their event and lunch, so we have to move it there. So we move them, we move that furniture, sit-down furniture, every time we have an event. And then in regards to the 2 particular events that you spoke of, we were working with those event organizers, the Arts Commission, and and Amy with the senior health fair. So we're always open for input or where to put that. Any additional seating or chairs. Some user groups don't want an abundance of chairs or non-related furniture that's not related to their event. So we certainly can look at additional lounge or lobby furniture, but it will just have to be moved for every event, which is something that we have no problem doing. But that's, we can do that.
And then my next question is the piano. It has been, at one point, it was by the front door in the windows, because, well, there's windows all over the park. And my understanding of pianos is that you don't want them subject to climate changes, like doors opening and closing, and windows. So is there anywhere that that piano can be stored away from all the light that the windows bring in and the doors?
Currently, there is not. We, again, move that piano, I would say probably every other event, because where it currently is in that corner, maybe a group needs that space, or for something else, they might want it moved to a different part of the lobby. But there is no other place where it could be stored when it's not being used. There's not enough room in the storage room off of the stage where the grand piano is, as well as it won't fit through regular doors. A professional company would have to come in, tilt it on its side, remove the legs, wrap it to move it to an area to go through a standard door if we were to move it anywhere. But currently, there is no place to move it unless we were moving it more often than we are moving it now. So for an example, today, it could have been moved into the second meeting room closest to the restrooms that wasn't being used. However, tomorrow, we have to move it back to the lobby because we are getting ready for the next event. And then Friday night, we're moving it again to get ready and set up for Saturday's event.
All right, thank you.
And the piano does get tuned. If it's being used by a user group, it does get professionally tuned every time it's used.
Okay, it's a concern to me, and other people mention it to me also. It's a concern to the public. So I thought I would ask if there is someplace else it could go, so thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right. Yeah, thank you, Brian. I mean, my main hope is that our, revenue through the rest of the year will exceed what last year's revenue was, and that we can show a growth with it. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Oops. Right, next, my iPad just did something weird. I think that Judge Dave Larson is, yes, local and regional use of the sequential intercept model. And welcome, Judge Larson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I just got to switch over and start my PowerPoint. Whoop, just a minute. So thank you for having me present. This is more for information only. Hopefully you're inspired to, we can take further action from here. But thank you. A couple years ago, you had passed a resolution supporting the use of the sequential intercept model by the court. And just for some review, the sequential intercept model is kind of the gold standard for how you organize response to addiction and behavioral health issues. And if you can see, there's 6 intercepts. Intercept 0 is the community. Intercept 1 is law enforcement. When law enforcement encounters people, there's a way to get people to services. Law enforcement assisted diversion is one of those ways of doing that. Intercept 2 is their initial appearance in court. Intercept 3 is specialty courts and dispositional courts after the case is disposed of. Intercept 4 is jail reentry. When somebody's in jail, what condition are they going to be in when they go back out and they're released from jail? And then finally, Intercept 5 is probation. And so it's designed to kind of integrate the response. And right now, the thing that's lacking statewide is any kind of meaningful strategy for how to deal with these things, and I'll explain why the sequential intercept model is so essential to that. So what we have now is kind of this fragmented approach. Like, for instance, in Federal Way, the police department doesn't have a lead program, but they could start their own lead program without coordinating with the court. Court could start its own community court, which it has, without coordinating with law enforcement. The jails we use could have their own programs, and probation, which is part of the court, would probably still have the court's programs, but none of those have to coordinate with each other, which leaves the people we're supposed to be helping kind of in this maze of services. What ends up happening is it creates a lot of fiscal inefficiencies and then a lot of competition for programs, and we have very, very much a program and system-based approach. And this is mostly at the legislature where these fights take place for money, and I've been involved in those and still have some of the bruises from when even the court system itself fighting within the court system for money for the programs. And so it creates a lot of fiscal inefficiencies when we take the fragmented approach. And when you go across South King County with 16 jurisdictions, it gets even worse because each jurisdiction has its own response and its own way of doing things. And there's nothing bad about that, and I'm not trying to suggest that we interfere with that. What I'm suggesting is that we have a more organized approach, because basically what happens, and what I witness in the court, is people being passed it back and forth among jurisdictions. And so somebody that maybe gets a warrant in Federal Way for a theft, and they get put in jail, the typical recommendation by the prosecutor and the defense attorney is to get the person out of jail. They might get 4 days of jail with 4 days credit, and we kick them to the curb. And there's nothing done with that person after they leave. Somebody that's on probation might have some intervention, but it's not focused originally on the behavioral health issues. We wait till people are in the system, wait till people are out of control, not just in Federal Way, anywhere, till people are out of control, and then we start intervening. And so what ends up happening is that we just have this kind of passing forth, back and forth between jurisdictions, and nobody's ever really responsible for the approach. And the reason for that is because there's not enough local funding to be able to have any kind of regional approach, coordination between jurisdictions. I wrote a paper called Justice Involved Therapeutic Intervention in 2019. That inspired the legislature, some legislators, to fund the courts for $4 million. Our peer navigators are funded with that first round of funding. But it's had a snowball effect. This biennium, the local courts got $21 million to help deal with this, including a $500,000 pilot program that'll test out what I'm suggesting in this presentation today. And so the idea is it's a regional issue, it's not a local issue. In other words, Federal Way can't do it itself. There has to be an approach when each court system, each police department can have its own approach. But once we send people out to actually get the services, there needs to be a kind of an organized way of doing that. And so these intercepts are kind of off-ramps, okay? You can imagine the person's on a path of crime, and the sequential intercept is kind of an off-ramp to allow people an opportunity, and I say opportunity because not everybody takes advantage of them, to get some meaningful help. But right now, this is what you get on the off-ramp is basically nothing. And law enforcement can tell you from the Blake referrals, what do you refer them to? And even with the new passage of the new Blake bill, what can you do with diversion when there isn't the resources that are organized in a way to actually be meaningful? And so this current fragmented approach, I always use the jigsaw puzzle kind of analogy. Each of us in the system, whether it's law enforcement, treatment providers, the courts, we all see our piece of the jigsaw puzzle as the answer. But the people we serve, all they see is a bunch of jigsaw puzzle pieces strewn about. And it really isn't helpful. So what I'm advocating for is a participant-based approach where we make that person the jigsaw puzzle, and we're trying to fill their parts. In other words, if it's employment, if it's education, if it's whatever. And some people will say, well, isn't that compassionate? Well, it is. But it's also a screening mechanism, because the people that are serious, that are seriously having behavioral health issues that influence crime, we will see those people drop out of the system with intervention. There's some people that just commit crime that have behavioral health issues too. Those people will reveal themselves as they continue to commit crimes. And the punitive system is designed just fine for that. But what we're doing now is we ignore the people the first time they come to court. When they first time they come to court, that's when we should be screening them for behavioral health issues, the first time. And we can nip it in the bud. And with a strategy like this, using the sequential intercept model, and we do it on a regional basis, we can actually have that impact. So basically, the effective use of this is to, if you could imagine a regional resource network, which is what the 500,000 is intended to do, is to try to see if these regional resource networks work with peer support services as that bridge. So if you imagine a canyon, and on one side's all services and everything else, and the other side's the court, police, probation, jails. The peers serve as that bridge to those services. And that's what we're doing now. We've been doing it about the last year and a half in our court, and it's very effective. We've served hundreds of people that we wouldn't otherwise serve. When I presented at the drug court conference in October last year, the first thing I said is, you're willing to live with the success you'll never know about. Because I'll never know about the success that people had by having a peer be available to them barrier-free in our court, to be able to talk to somebody and get intervention without a judge telling them to, without it being forced. But there's hundreds of people we have been able to serve that way in our court. But what's missing is this regional support network. And it's not a suggestion for having all kinds of extra programs and everything else. It's taking existing programs, which are very siloed, very fragmented, and organize them in a way where they're responsive to the needs of the people we're supposed to serve. And so I'm advocating with the Administrative Office of the Courts to have our South King County be one of the pilot projects. And I've already worked with the other judges from the different jurisdictions here in South King County to try to get us to kind of work together in this. But it's not just the judges. We need law enforcement. We need folks like Sarah's counterparts in other jurisdictions to work together to try to take advantage of this opportunity to use state money to fund this intervention that we can't afford to fund locally, and that even if we could, we'd be creating parallel systems with people crossing over and back and further compounding the problem. It's also a fiscal issue in the sense of sometimes people are in our community court, they might be in a drug court in King County, they might be involved in lead in Seattle, and we're taking up those 3 opportunities that person's using. That could free up 2 other opportunities if we coordinated a little better. And so the model, the different communities in South King County that have courts, these are the ones that have agreed in principle to work together to try to make this happen. And the reason to be here is to reach out to you and reach out to the mayor and anybody, and to the police chief or whatever else, to see if we can coordinate a way to make this a reality. This is our sequential intercept mapping exercise that occurred in February of 2022. And this maps out services and everything based on the different intercepts. But it's a living, breathing document. It changes over time, but we've already done the groundwork. We just need to organize it. Pierre Kent, who we have the contract with, is in the process of actually organizing the different services in that manner. And then, again, the 500,000 that's allocated this year to do this pilot project, hopefully we can get some of those funds. And again, it's not about creating new services or having Federal Way pay out all kinds of money. It's just the opposite, being able to take advantage of an opportunity to organize in a way that actually has a clear strategy for interacting with people with these issues, so we don't keep cycling through the system. And so I'm pleading with you to help us get to that next level where we are not passing people back and forth among jurisdictions, but actually coordinating in ways that are meaningful both to the community and to the people we're trying to serve. Because right now, what we're doing ain't working. It's it's just this no strategy, waiting till people are out of control and then putting them in a community court, which community court's great, it's absolutely essential, but we miss so many opportunities by not having a clear strategy to intervene right away. So I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Right. Thank you. First, Councilmember Sefadowson.
Thank you, Judge Larson, for your presentation, but and particularly for your part in putting this together and creating this program. I do appreciate, and I've heard you speak on this a number of times at different events and committee meetings, and I think a lot of people are taking to it and are very supportive. My question is, the cities, out of the 16, I counted maybe 12 or 10 that are involved. So the cities that are not involved, do you know why they're not?
Well, the cities that I included have municipal courts. Other cities in South King County are served by district court.
Oh, okay.
And so the idea is to start with the municipal courts first, and then then work to district court too. District court is its own animal in among itself. It's 26 judges and it's a big bureaucracy, whereas the municipal courts, like our court's a big court with 2 judges. So we're very flexible. We can move on react on a dime and really move fast versus, so the idea is to make it work with the municipal courts and then branch it out into the cities that have served by district courts.
Great. And my other question is, we do have the $500,000 to get it going, but when and where, when is there going to be like a
Well, right
fiscal
now-
impact on our cities and jurisdictions?
Well, right now, the Administrative Office of the Courts is going through, doling out the 21 million, or it's 10 million per year. They're in that process. Our grant applications were due Friday. And so they're going through that. And then they're going to start deciding how to do the 500,000. They have to pick a county in eastern Washington. They have to pick a county in western Washington. And I'm certainly advocating for at least South King County, because we've already done a lot of the work. But most of this is, like I said, before the meeting, I told somebody it's just pure grit. It's just chewing gum and baling wire and sheer will. Because some of this can be done very inexpensively. It's just a matter of coordinating. Just a matter of saying, hey, we can do this different. And we don't need a lot of money, but we do need somebody to once it's started, to hold it together. And that's, I think, state money should be doing that. Somebody that kind of holds that network together needs to be done at the state level and not expect the cities to pay for that.
Okay. And is there a lead jurisdiction?
What I'm advocating for is because there's already recovery navigators, there's already other things that are existing. What I'm advocating for is to leverage already existing programs, have a healthcare authority who runs the peer navigators work with us. The coordinator would be through like the healthcare authority. It wouldn't be a local jurisdiction. In other words, Federal Way would not get some of that 500,000. Federal Way would enjoy the benefit of somebody coordinating in a way that allowed us to not have to spend local money and local effort to tie into a network of services. Like right now in our community court, we have to pull together all those services, all those things, and we don't have the bandwidth to number one, pull it all together, and then to maintain it. Whereas this, we could just plug and play into a system. And same Black Diamond, which is a small jurisdiction, could just plug and play instead of having to invent their own network of services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Kochmar.
So I can understand the way the sequential intercept model works. What is it that you want us to do specifically?
Well, I want us to, as a city, to work together, all 3 branches, the mayor's office and which supervises the police, the city council, which allocates funds, obviously, and sets the tone policy-wise, and the courts to work together with our counterparts, to have this become a reality, so that we can make this regional approach supported by all the jurisdictions that are highlighted in my.
Yeah. So what is it that you want do you want the council to reach out to the other cities? What do you want us to do?
And that's today was for information, and the
Okay.
follow-through would be, yes, I want that type of meetings of the different jurisdictions.
Okay.
I've asked to be in front of, I don't know the group, but one of the commanders was supposed to get me in front of the group of police chiefs, but it hasn't happened yet.
So you're going to come back to us each time you think we need to be appraised?
Well, it doesn't have to be where I come to the committee meetings. I think it can be done staff-wise and like Sarah Bridgeford's office. And she's been great because the idea, she's Intercept Zero. And so the idea of having peers be able to work with folks at Intercept Zero in the
So
community.
You don't need approval from us or anything. You're the 3rd branch of government. You have your own.
But at the same time, there has to be some kind of leadership, for lack of a better term. And Judge Dave Larson standing down there now for 6 years asking for this hasn't been enough. And so I'm asking to have some leadership at the council level,
All right.
at the executive level also to make this work.
Which is, I mean, literally, I don't have a clue about how to make it work, so you're
Right.
gonna have to let us know.
Well,
Like,
I
Hey,
think,
Linda, this is
I
what
think
you
it,
do.
I think it comes down to whether it's invitations to creating, working together to have a meeting where we bring your counterparts from other jurisdictions, counterparts on the executive branch, counterparts with the police, together in a meeting where we talk about this concept and have people either buy in or not buy in. So that's really what it comes down to.
Okay.
And so it's, because I first presented on this, not sequential intercept, in December of 2017. And so it's something I want to see us accomplish. And
So I have one other question.
sure,
The other question is, since the legislature passed the drug gross misdemeanor, but that does not allow for us to make our own,
drug law.
right, so how are we going to incorporate that into what?
Well, but keep in mind that that new law permits diversion. There's no diversion. This would create that diversion. This would, and diversion doesn't mean that charges won't be filed, doesn't mean people won't be expected to, that won't be plead guilty and be found guilty. It means that if we're expected to provide some kind of care and treatment, this would do that.
Okay. All right.
All right. Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, I guess my, Councilmember Kochmar, President, asked my question, but I'm going to ask it a little differently.
Sure.
I mean, it's a great presentation. I've seen that graph years ago. Nothing's been done. Who's going to take the lead to do it? And you just need us to pass a resolution and say, Judge Larson, go do it? I mean,
Well-
we talk information all the time, and
Right.
nothing's going to get done until somebody says, I'm going to do it. So who's going to do it?
I've been doing it in the court.
You
We've
want
been
us-
using the sequential intercept model for 2 years now because we got the money for the pier.
Yeah.
We've been doing it,
But-
and so, yeah.
But do we pass a resolution? I mean, really, I'm not clear after hearing what
Yeah.
our council president said, what you want us to do.
Well,
If I could.
Sure.
kind of-
Yeah, you-
I mean, what is the action item?
Yeah, what's the
I mean,
action
well,
item?
what-
so, and
what's-
that's why I
what's the-
said this is for information only.
Yeah, but
And-
with
and-
that information, what action should we be taking? with-
Okay,
now that we
so
have
I
the
don't know if, if the deputy mayor or the council president would reach out to other councils and ask for meetings with their counterparts to discuss this issue. Perhaps it can be done at Councilmember Stefan Dawson's regional committee, which I've already presented to. But I'd like again, the sequential intercept model involves police involvement, involves our jails, and jail, by the way, SCORE has been exemplar. They allow our peers to come in to meet with people and everything else. So I'm just more for information to
So-
tell you that,
Yeah.
that I need the cooperation of the different branches.
Okay, well, maybe we need just to have a regional meeting where we get some of these folks together and
Sure.
start talking about how to move forward.
And that would be exactly what I'd like to
So-
see, is the jurisdictions I refer to, and I'd be glad to work with whoever you want me to, the jurisdictions that I refer to, getting the counterparts, your counterparts invited to a meeting. We'll even organize the meeting.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
good. So
and,
maybe our chair would like to speak to the mayor, and then we could get back to you about how to get a meeting going.
Sure,
Okay,
Does that work?
that would be
yeah,
fantastic.
very well.
Because I think we have an opportunity to kind of be the prow of the ship, to really be a leader in South King County about how we do things, and the fact that we can have an organized strategy for how to do things in a efficient, effective way.
Yeah, and I think that's real important right now, considering the gross misdemeanor law
Right.
that's passing, because we're all unclear on how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I came down here, or wanted to speak to you too, is because I knew this was going to be coming down the path, that we were going to be handling these cases in our courts instead of in Superior Court. And if we don't have some kind of strategy, we're just going to create this, we're just going to continue to have a revolving door, and that everybody gets frustrated with. And I've been trying to get folks to say, hey, to recognize that there is a way we can do this together in a strategic way that actually helps people and helps our community. And if I've done that tonight, great. If I haven't, I'm sorry. But,
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So,
Yeah, with right now, with the Blake sort of fix.
Right.
You know,
Right.
And with this, the sequential intercept model not in place, I mean, here in the next few weeks, you know, you may be getting cases coming before you.
Right.
How is it going to be handled currently under the new status quo?
Well, the prosecutor has a lot of power under the new statute, so the prosecutor would decide whether something gets diverted or not diverted. But the courts, what we'll do is we'll continue to adjudicate cases. We use peers like we have using the sequential intercept model, whether somebody's in jail, whether their first appearance, whether whatever, to try to get people to services and treatment. We'll use our PALS program that we have with King County to get people assessments. We'll do the same things we've been doing. The missing pieces are Intercept Zero, and Sarah is more than willing, I think, to be involved in it. Intercept One with law enforcement, which we did arrange with the Federal Way Police that they were giving out information for Pierre Kent for the Blake referrals, the referrals they had to give prior to the statute. So, but the intercepts that are missing, Intercept 0 and 1, to fold those in, and then Intercept 4, because we don't have our own jail. We've been working with SCORE at Intercept 4, but we don't have that arrangement with Kent or with the other jails the city uses. So those kind of arrangements might need to be worked on too. But most of the work's going to be between the court, community development, and police
Okay.
is most of the work.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. With the Blake fix, don't they have, someone could be arrested twice or cited twice still before they might come to court? Or is that wrong?
I don't have it, the last time I read it was a couple weeks ago, and there's been so many iterations of it that, I don't think the bill that passed, I don't think there's that. I think it starts out as a gross misdemeanor with gross misdemeanors normally are 364 days in jail and a $5,000 fine, but it starts out with like a $1,000 fine and no more than, I can't remember, 90 days in jail or something like that. But then after the second or third, then it ramps up to potentially a full 364 days. It ramps up in terms of the maximum penalties. The impact that is going to have is very minimal, because those maximum penalties are going to be rarely, if ever, be imposed. And so, so really the key is that first time somebody comes in, like I talked about that intervention, the first time somebody ever comes in with one of those charges, that we actually have a strategy that works, whether it's if law enforcement's seeing them, or we're seeing them for an arraignment, or seeing them at a sentencing, or seeing them leaving a jail, or coming to probation. There's actually a organized strategy that actually addresses them in a kind of a unified way versus a fragmented way. Because otherwise, we're failing when we don't have that strategy. And that's what we need, and that's why I'm here tonight, is to plead for that type of strategy.
So I think what I heard you say is that you'll be needing to work with police, community development, and courts.
Yeah, the courts I got under control.
So then what,
The jails too.
the jails, so
Yeah.
then, yeah, and councils don't direct any of those folks as to
Understood.
what to do. I'm just thinking how we could get that going, but,
So I think the councils of the respective jurisdictions have some power in terms of the power of the pulpit, the power of being able to speak and say, this is a good idea and we should try to do this. And one of my sayings, it's always better to inspire than it is to require, right? So if we can inspire other people, other jurisdictions to be involved in this, then I think we've gone a long way, because we're gonna help the communities and we're gonna help the people. And again, there's gonna be people that aren't gonna respond. There are gonna be people that continue to commit crimes regardless of what we do. But there's gonna be, most people are gonna respond favorably to this.
so next week, we're gonna be at the Association of Washington Cities Annual Conference, and I think Lydia and I can, maybe talk to some people on SCA and see if we can get something going.
Yeah, and some of it may be, that's those side conversations that
Right.
don't violate open public meetings, but the side
Correct.
conversations
Well,
to
the-
say,
yeah.
yeah, that.
There's just two of us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I'm not inspiring you to violate open public meetings, that's not my intent. But
And we've never done that. I've
yeah,
never done that.
that's it. But but those kind of things, and then the rumbling in the community, and then when those meetings, if we work together on having those meetings, then that can get people to, and the other thing too is that if we had that kind of support, we will be selected as one of the pilot projects,
All
to be
right,
able to
so-
demonstrate how it will work. And we're already working on that. We have Peer Kent developing the regional resource network.
All right, so we'll talk to some folks in the South King County cities next week and see if we can come up with anything.
Okay, I appreciate it. And there's going to be one of two things on my tombstone. One's going to be either, this is the last day I'm going to eat like this, or the other is going to be, at least I tried, okay? And tonight it's the least I tried, and so that's why I'm here. So I appreciate it. There's nothing, we're going to pull it together, and I'm not going to give up until we do, okay?
Could we get a copy of the information you presented tonight so we could take with us?
I think Mary has it. I think the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm certain that that's available. Is that, all the slides should be in your packets, I assume.
They weren't in the packet. They weren't in the packet.
They were in?
We're not.
We're not? Okay,
So if we could get that, that would be helpful.
okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for the questions, and thank you for the challenges. I think it's important to do that,
Right.
because it is an important issue. Okay? So thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you for your, for spearheading this and for the presentation. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, next is the request to transition the housing repair and minor home programs to third-party vendors and solicit proposals, and it will be presented by our very own Amy Glandon. I told her that we would make sure we asked her lots of tough questions.
And I will remind you that I asked you to be kind. Let me just get this going.
And you are which one? Housing repair?
Yep. Thank you.
Why don't you start it?
All right. Good evening, Committee Chair Walsh, Committee Member Asefa Dawson, Council President Kochmar, Deputy Mayor Honda, and Council Member Dovey. My name is Amy Glandon. I am here tonight on behalf of the Housing Repair Program. The policy question before you tonight is, should the City Council approve seeking proposals for the operation of the Housing Repair Program and Minor Home Repair Program, moving both programs to a third-party subrecipient for implementation? Some background information for you. The City of Federal Way has a housing repair program that was established for its residents to assist in home repairs that might be a barrier to remaining in their homes, allowing for aging in place, and for maintaining value to their properties. The housing repair program covers the larger projects of a home, including a roof, a water heater, a furnace, etc., but it does not do any cosmetic or aesthetic repairs, such as flooring or painting. A homeowner can qualify for this program based on their household size and their income. Last year, as part of the annual action plan, the Community Services Department looked into the feasibility of adding an additional program that focused on more minor home repairs for a limited clientele based on presumed benefit for senior citizens. The minor home repair program was intended to fill the gaps that the housing repair program was missing. The addition of the minor home repair program was approved by the council with the annual action plan in November of 2022. Unfortunately, the housing repair program has seen a decline and has been struggling for three main reasons: the utilization of the program from homeowners, the procurement of contractors, and the scope of the projects that are being requested. Additionally, The minor home repair program has not yet been implemented as it's waiting approval from HUD. The decline in the utilization by homeowners is due in part to the extensive nature of the qualification process, including handing over personal documents and financial information to a governmental entity. There is a lot of distrust that it's created a barrier and to those who are seeking assistance. This discussion item was brought before council annually prior to submission to HUD for the annual report to discuss the decline in the utilization. Contractors are also a hot commodity right now. And when I first started with the city and the housing repair specifically, my first order of business was to procure more contractors for this program. I built a lot of relationships. I made a lot of phone calls. I upgraded our list to 30 different contractors we could call upon, but we still struggle with responses to bid requests. There are a lot of requirements for the contractors from the city. It can be a deterrent, and it can also be very expensive for them. In addition to this, we've also had projects that are requested that are falling outside of what our program allows. These homeowners that are requesting assistance outside of our parameters are referred elsewhere. Due to these reasons, we recommend a third-party program execution. This would allow the program to be retained through the city. However, the third party would handle the qualification of the homeowners, scheduling of projects, execution of the repairs, and all inspections. The city would maintain the environmental reviews and deed restrictions for all loan-based projects. We anticipate a third-party vendor to have a more extensive contractor relationship that would help alleviate the concerns and the barriers in order to continue serving the residents of Federal Way. This would also allow for the city to more quickly and more efficiently put the funding into the community where it needs to be. So with that in mind, this request was brought before the Human Services Commission on May 17th of 2023 at their regular meeting, where they unanimously recommended bringing this request before the committee tonight. If the request is approved, we'd begin the RFP process and hope to have a contract in place by the end of the year with the chosen third-party vendor. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Right, Councilmember Dovey.
So my understanding is we have $250,000 that we use to help people fix their homes that have needs. How much of that $250,000 is going to go to this third-party service that's going to reduce the amount we give to them? So we have $250,000, somebody's going to bid on this, and they're going to want $50,000 to administer it, or $75,000, or whatever the number is. How much are we giving up to a third party that's not going to go to our citizens?
I'm phoning a friend on this one.
Yeah, good.
I'm happy to take that. That would be part of the RFP process, but there are limitations in terms of what can be included for the administration of such programs. We already have direct costs associated with delivering the program. Those would continue. We don't anticipate that that would be any more with a subrecipient. We might see some additional admin costs, but that would be very minimal. In terms of where, like, we have finance support, they're going to need that same type of thing. We don't charge that to CDBG, they would, but they would also have cost savings. A number of the organizations that could be eligible to apply for this do a lot of the repairs internally. So they have staff that are able to do that, qualified to do those repairs, and they're seeing cost savings just in terms of using internal staff rather than contractors to do all the work.
So are you suggesting we're going to potentially find a nonprofit that this is their sweet spot and they're going to apply, and they're going to, because they already have staff, this is just helps them do more work? Is that kind of your?
They would likely be expanding in order to implement this type of project. It does have to be a nonprofit or a governmental entity to be a subrecipient for federal funds. So in this case, that would be true.
I see. And how much money is left over every year that people don't take advantage of?
Well, it's a little bit different with the capital side of CDBG. That's the portion of funds that we can continue to run projects past the end of the program year. So we continue to expend funds from prior program years. In the current situation with our housing repair, I will say, I believe part of this was pandemic-related. We're much farther behind than normal. We're still using funds from 2 years ago and a little bit from 2019 as well.
So we've got $700,000 sitting in the bank?
Not quite. We didn't allocate funds to housing repair because we were behind. So in 2020 and 2022, we didn't allocate funds to the standard housing repair program as a result. So we would anticipate that we'd have about 150,000 that would be eligible for the regular housing repair program, 100,000 for minor home
Okay,
repair.
so it hasn't been sitting there accumulating because nobody could use it?
No, we used the funds for other purposes when we had funds remaining.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Asafa Dawson.
Okay. Thank you. You did it great, by the way. So, yeah. When we're talking about barriers that need to be removed, is it possible to remove, we're talking about applications and all the paperwork that they need to submit, so it's around, do they need TA, or is it just about all the documentation that they need to present? And if it's the documentation, how can we minimize that?
So it is a documentation requirement for the use of these funds to submit the personal documents. So this is proof of all the bank accounts, all the credit card payments, like everything they're spending money on. There's a lot of hesitancy
Yeah.
with not only giving that information away, but also, I think, and this is strictly an opinion from working with these homeowners, there's a lot of shame that's involved in that. And to turn over personal documents that prove that they need help has been a really big challenge for a lot of people as well.
So would that continue to be an issue once we go to a third-party applicant?
The beauty of a third party, especially in a nonprofit situation, is they're not handing over like information to City Hall. They're handing over information to an entity that this is what they do. They help people, they navigate financial barriers. This is what they do. So being able to utilize a third party or a nonprofit that's not a government entity actually opens more doors than we are able to open.
Okay. And then you did talk about seniors. That also includes people with disabilities, right?
Yes.
And
Well, on the minor home repair, when choosing a limited clientele, you have to select a group. So senior citizens was the presumed benefit clientele that we focused on with the minor home repair side. Now, the housing repair, the overarching umbrella program does not have limitations on age, gender, sex, disability, anything like that. It's open to anybody who can qualify based on income and their household size and assets. With the minor home repair, we did choose the senior citizens because we saw in our community outreach that was a really big area, was a lot of seniors who are trying to stay in their homes and age in place, but there were things that they couldn't handle anymore. There were small repairs around their houses, including, something so minor that we would take advantage of changing batteries in a smoke detector is something that some seniors weren't able to do on their own. Mm-hmm. So with those kind of missing pieces in mind is what we focused on, was the hurting community, which is the seniors.
Okay. And of course, people with disability also may have the same challenges. And then considering that the temperature is rising now and getting hotter, would AC be part of the minor home repair allowed service, I guess?
I will take that one, and also just add that with CDB, if I can, about persons with disabilities, with CDBG, any program has to have one presumed benefit. So unfortunately, we can't select two. So it does need to be a narrow clientele It's just an opportunity to try this out, see how it works. Is it meeting a need? Something that we could consider expanding in the future potentially to additional groups. It does require less paperwork for a presumed benefit program, which is why we were pursuing that model. In terms of air conditioning, it is something that the city is looking at with the addition of the climate resiliency chapter to the comprehensive plan. It is a requirement of HUD that we also consider how we're addressing climate impacts. Right now, air conditioning units are not included, but that would be something that I would foresee that we'll be including in strategies as part of our consolidated plan, either ACs or heat pumps, and how we address other needs in relation to smoke and heat in the future.
Okay, and one last question, and I'm done. So with the admin cost, you're using the 15%, 20% HUD admin allocation that cannot be used for anything else, right? So there's no additional cost to the city? Is that my understanding?
There is no additional cost to the city, so we would continue to use both admin and some project delivery costs for doing things like the environmental review, deed restrictions on the properties for the loan-based program, any work with Habitat. So those costs are already covered internally by what we do, and we continue to be covered by CDBG.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. Good job, Amy. Good job, Sarah. Do you have, how do you let people know that this program is available?
So this program is spoken about in commission. I know that it's been mentioned in the Senior Advisory Commission specifically. I can't speak to all of the commissions. It's also listed on the website, on the city's website, under the community development page. So there's not necessarily advertising that way, but we've also worked with different agencies. So for instance, Multi-Service Center knows that we have this. So when they encounter a homeowner who's looking for help, they do refer over. The same with King County. King County has their own program and they will refer over. So there is word of mouth that's getting out along with the third-party agencies that we already work with as far as our referrals go. So it's a balanced relationship that way.
Can a homeowner have more than one project?
There are some limitations. There is a dollar limitation right now of $20,000. So we have allowed multiple projects up to that amount when there is when on the loan-based side. Mobile homes are a lower amount. It's $5,000 or 50% of the value of the mobile. Usually with mobile homes, we're finding that projects are just hitting that cap and it's with the first project and not moving into a second.
Well, thank you very much.
Councilmember Dovey.
Is there a match required by the person getting the funds?
No, there's not matching. The only requirement is that if it goes over the threshold of the loan or the grant amount, that is the homeowner's responsibility to cover.
If the home gets sold at a later date, does the money come back to the city to give to somebody else?
Yes, there's a deed restriction that's put on the loan-based program. So that money does come back when the house transfers ownership.
Okay. Do we have any of these going right now? Anybody in the program?
So we do have, actually pulled some numbers. We do have a few that are active under the qualification portion at this point. In 2023, we did just finish a project that came in at the end of 2022 a few weeks ago. And so far this year, we've had 3 applicants. And I haven't done the qualification for them, so I don't know where they sit exactly, but I know that at least one of them is in the process of finishing the qualification.
I mean, just so, what kind of project are they? Like roofs or bathrooms or
So-
windows? I mean,
So we had 8 applications. So let me just kind of give what I have. We had 8 applications last year. In those 8 applications, One of them was a plumbing repipe, one of them was two of them were roofs, one of them was painting, one of them was just general plumbing repairs, so like a new toilet, so wasn't even something that qualified for the program. And then we had a full rewiring was another one. So far in 2023, the first two applications of the year, one is a replacement on a repair of a falling chimney, and the other is a roof replacement.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Amy. Just with getting the word out, at the senior health fair a few weeks ago, was there a booth or anything talking about the program at it?
No, not specifically. The target on the Senior Health Resource Fair was not on the housing repair side. It was more on a value add to lifestyle, which in hindsight, having a table for housing repair would have been helpful for some of the seniors that were there. I think that if we had a table, I think it may have created more questions than answers for the community. Because, like I said, this program we have currently is a very narrow window. And a lot of the senior community that we had come through are not homeowners. They're tenants, which this program is for homeowners.
Okay. It sounds like Sarah wanted to chime in on that also.
I
Don't
would be
go
happy
away,
to.
Amy.
Sorry. We do other outreach as well, so it's included in the community services listserv. It has been on social media. Those are typically annual reaches. We did not, while the newsletter is anytime we have a newsletter, we did not do the social media push this year just in anticipation and considering moving to a third party. That it has not historically returned a lot of interest. As Amy mentioned, we have a large network of nonprofits. We work with the Senior Center that has information on it and the flyers on the program. So the information is also getting out to very specific groups that are working with our seniors in the city.
Okay. Right. And, if we go ahead with this, when we put out an RFP, what type of organizations would be administering it? I mean, what are some examples of organizations that would administer it?
So, like we've mentioned, we do work with multiple vendors or third-party nonprofits that do this type of work. An entity, for instance, would be like a Habitat for Humanity, who does home repairs and has an in-network contractor that works directly with them. There's also a group called Sound Generations that does minor home repair work as well. So there's multiple
Okay.
entities out there that do it.
All right, thank you. And Amy, great job.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, do we have a motion?
Yes, we do. I move to forward the transition of the housing repair program as proposed to the June 2023 consent agenda for approval.
I second it. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next up, jail item E, Jail Services Interlocal Agreement, Kent City Jail. Yes. Go ahead.
Hello, Council. I am Thaddeus Hodge, Commander with the Federal Way Police Department. I am honored to be here tonight. One of the policy questions I have for you tonight is, should the Federal Way Police Department renew an interlocal agreement with the Kent City Jail for services at the cost of approximately $350,000 a year? The Kent Jail is one of the jail services providers utilized to house people arrested by Federal Way PD and is a primary booking location for Federal Way in-cut city arrests. This interlocal agreement will continue the jail services provided by the Kent City Jail for Federal Way PD. Are there any questions?
We're having some internet internet problems up here.
So I do not have any questions. I mean, it's just proceeding with what we've been doing. Do we have a motion?
Now we do. I move approval of the Kent City Jail interlocal agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the said agreement.
No,
I'm
that's,
reading the wrong one, that's why I was hesitant. Okay, page 14. I'm sorry, my computer's not working, so. Page 14.
right here. Right here.
No, you're messing mine up.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I move to, oh, I'm reading the bottom, I'm sorry, I had the right page. Okay. I move to forward the Kent City Jail interlocal agreement to the June 20, 2023 council consent agenda for approval.
And I second it. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It carries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And the second policy question I have for you is, should the city renew their service agreement with the Commons Mall to provide on-site police services in 2023 and 2024? The mall currently has 3 officers who work at the mall. Their main purpose is law enforcement, but they do so much more. They are a very highly visible position, and their community involvement. They interact with their community all the time, and they're a great resource not only for the city, for the police department, and the city council also. So I am hoping that you will go ahead and approve this. Is there any questions?
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So my question is, thank you for being here. It's always good to see you.
Yes, ma'am.
With the mall or the commons growing with the pads opening up this year, is that enough officers? Or will we need more?
As of right now, it is enough. I spoke to the manager last year, and he said if it does become more, that he will ask for it. But right now, all he's asking for is the 3 that we currently have.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? All right.
Oh,
I move to forward the proposed agreement to the June 2020, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
And I second the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously again. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are you up again for this next one too?
I think I am, sir. F and G
Right.
are the same ones. The mall, just because they have grown, they split into 2 separate entities. The mall and the Mall West, so it's going to be the same contract, the same amount of money. They just want to split it up separately for financial reasons. So it's the same exact thing, just different contracts.
All right. I like that fast presentation.
Yes, sir.
So,
I'll stop
do
by
have
the
a
best. Deputy Chief Sumner.
okay.
I have a question, though.
Yes, ma'am.
So they have the 10% and 90%?
Yes.
Right? So which side is west, and why did they have 10 and 90?
The west is the new side where the Amazon is. So the Amazon is paying their portion, the 10%, and the mall is paying the other side, which is the 90%. So they split it up that way.
But our arrangement is just between the Commons Mall, not Amazon, right?
No, it's just one contract. It's just how they're paying. The Amazon is paying the extra 10%, and the mall is paying the rest 90%.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in really quickly on that.
Yes.
It's an ownership issue. The corporations have split, and it's just how we have to contract with them now, because it's actually 2 separate entities that are owners of the Commons Mall, so it's still the same area, but the way that we have to contract is just separate.
Okay. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Honda, did you have another question?
I do. At one point, there was a small police substation at the mall where you could process someone if you were taking them into custody. Do you still have that there?
Yes, Mom. They still have the substation at the 3 officers' house, and they process their clients there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Ready? I move to forward the proposed agreement to the June 20, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
And I second the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It, once again, is approved unanimously. All
Thank you.
right, thank you. And that takes us to item H, City Access Control Upgrade RFP Award. And Mr. Thomas Fickner.
Good evening. It's a pleasure presenting to this committee. I never get the privilege. Bear with me as I pull this presentation up for you, give you something to look at. All right, here we go.
Do you need to call in somebody to help you there to get it up?
I might need that. So good evening. I'm here to present about the city physical access control upgrade. So what is this, you might ask? It's the cards and readers used to gain physical entry into the buildings. Building meaning City Hall, but we use it in multiple locations, which I'll cover in the next slide. It is easier than keys because if somebody loses a key, or you have a disgruntled employee or something of that nature, you don't have to go and rekey the whole building. So it's very simple to go into a piece of software, click the button, and say deactivate their card, and they can no longer get access. You get the rejection beep instead of the access granted beep. And all activities logged. So when people come and go throughout the building, we know exactly who's doing what, when, and where. So this is a huge thing we've had to go through. We've had many times in my career with the city that we've had to resort to this to figure out what people are doing for various issues. So it has come in handy with that, which we could not do with keys. So which city facilities have access control? City Hall obviously has it. We've had it since we moved in. This system has been installed since 2004. Performing Arts and Event Center was built with it. And then Steel Lake Maintenance we've added more recently. We have a door, and then we have a gate at Steel Lake Maintenance, and then the Federal Community Center was also built with it, but it's completely separate, so it is not a part of what we have today. It has 2 doors and a separate system. So the project that we're presenting today is it's going to include replacing all of the readers. So all of these readers here on the left that you see is kind of the old style. That's what we have, outside of this room as well. It'll replace all the readers system-wide to the latest secured standard, which is very important. It will also integrate the community center into the big overarching system so we can control it in one place. And that means that City Hall users can, access the community center as well. It's not expanding the amount of doors at the community center. It's still going to be restricted to the 2, but it will at least get us to a point where we can expand that if needed. And it will provide a spare controller. So the system has like a main board or controller. And if that has a problem, it's in the supply challenged world that we live in today, those cards or those boards could take months to arrive. And so we have just recently replaced them. They're new and fresh, but if something should happen to them, it's better to have a spare on the shelf, especially considering this type of a system. And then, of course, all the labor for our vendor to complete the installation of the cards or of the readers and get the system all set up. So it's approximately 72 hours, what they say. And not included is the actual cards themselves. We have a separate vendor that we use for that, so we'll be buying that separately. And of course, we have to reprint everybody's lovely badge photo on their cards again on the new ones. And so we will need label printer ribbons for that. So the RFP did not include those because we buy them separately. So the request for proposal went out. We received one response from Northwest Security and Automation. We have used this vendor since 2018. They are doing a fantastic job. One of very few that support our system in the area. There are a few of them, but they actually provide very, very good service to us, and we're very happy with them. So we're glad that they responded and to this. So the proposal is about $50,738, as you can see, detailed all the different little line items, but the total after sales tax would be $50,738.04. And in the 2023-2024 budget, council has approved $75,000 in 2023 for this project, and in 2024, $25,000. And the reason we split it up between 2 years is if there's anything that comes out of this, or we identify as we're going through, or we can see some other, we have the main boards and we have some they call them sub-controllers throughout the buildings. If we need to replace any of those, we'll have a little extra budget for that, because again, this building has been installed, all that equipment has been installed since 2004. So we're still slowly starting to replace it. And it's not something that we really want to just fail, because we've been in that bind and it's not fun. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive. So the proposal was, as you saw on the previous slide, $50,738.04. We estimate the replacement proximity cards, so these ones that we'll issue to staff, $7,500, and then the printer ribbon, probably $250. So the total project's probably going to cost us around $58,000, just under $58,500. So the committee options, the question before you guys was, should the city enter into a goods and services agreement for the security access control upgrade with Northwest Security and Automation? There are two options, either approve or do not, and provide direction. Mayor recommends option 1. So I'm here to happily answer any questions you may have.
Right. Councilmember Assefa Dawson.
So the key card that but the panel that we have like downstairs,
Okay.
looks like the new one that you have here.
Yes, so that's very, very observant. Yes, it's not identical, but yes, we do have a few. The ones down in the main doors, because that whole vestibule got replaced, so we were having major problems with that thing. The wiring and all kinds of the doors were having all kinds of problems, and John and Jason, it was a struggle, and it would always fail. It happens on like a Friday afternoon about 3:30, and then we'd have to call our vendor, Northwest Security Automation, and they would dutifully send somebody out and get it secured. So they've been very helpful for us. But when we replace those type of things, we've been replacing what's called a multi-class reader. So to get a little bit more technical, the square box on the left is called Prox. It's a proximity. That's just the kind of technology that they use behind it. What we've been installing and what the company HID has been using for several years is called I-class or multi-class, as they've kind of evolved. That's what you see downstairs, not pictured here, but it looks very similar to the Signio version, which is their latest and greatest. And so that one, even though it's relatively new within the last couple of years, will be getting replaced with the
Thank
newer
you.
technology.
Right. And Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like you have it very well planned out, that the new cards will be issued before the work is even done. So I was going to ask about that, but good job.
Yeah, so we that's a very good point. We will be issuing the cards to everybody first, and then we'll be scheduling that work to be done, because once the reader gets put in, you'll have to use your new card on that door. So,
Good job. Good thinking.
thank you.
Thank you.
Right. And what would be the consequence if we said no? I mean, what are the ramifications here of not doing this?
So the by not doing this, there is a bit of a security risk with the old technology. I don't want to get into details on a public meeting, but you can actually Google search a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's not a good thing. So on a security level, it's something that the city should really be concerned about. We've made it this far, and we're finally able to get it in the budget. So on a security level, there's that. Secondly is the fact that the older technology is beginning to fail. So again, every single reader minus like a onesie, twosies, either doors that we've expanded. So for example, the council door, the council offices, that was not originally constructed with this building. So that reader is newer. Same thing with the IT offices, not a part of the building when we remodeled it in 2004. So that reader is newer. But we want to get everything on the same level playing field, same technology, same security, and so that's it. So if we don't do this, we continue to kick the can a little bit further down the road. I'll eventually have to come back and make a proposal to you again, have to figure out why you would not want to, what the question would be or what the reason would be, so I can address that. But
All right.
hopefully that helps.
All right, thank you. All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to forward the proposed good and services agreement for the security access control upgrade with Northwest Security and Automation to the June 20, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
And I second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It is approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And the
Thank
reason
you.
we're coming here before FedRAC is because the equipment, we're trying to get it ordered as soon as possible because there is some lead time on it.
All right,
So,
all right,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see here. Okay, next is item I, interlocal agreement with Public Health of Seattle, King County for the South King County Mobile Medical Program.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Walsh, Committee Member Asefa Dawson, excuse me.
Got it.
Council President Kochmar, Deputy Mayor Honda, and Council Member Doby. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you tonight the policy question concerning whether or not should the city enter into an interlocal agreement with Public Health of Seattle King County for the Seattle King County Mobile Health Program. A little bit of background on this. This is a long-term Human Services General Fund grant that we have done many, many years. And on November 15th, 2022, the council approved the Human Services Commission's grant recommendations for the amount of $7,000 per year over a 2-year period. This service will provide public health to Seattle King County's South King County Mobile Medical Van. The grant provides dental services to people experiencing homelessness in the city of Federal Way, and the program provides at least 30 dental visits per year to a total of 28 Federal Way residents with the goal of improving health. So you have the opportunity to approve the proposed agreement or disapprove, and I open for questions.
All right. Committee Member Asefa Dawson.
Thank you. Just wanted to say thank you because this is a very much needed service, especially when we see there's, a lot of people experiencing homelessness or low income don't have medical benefits. So I just want to, I think it's a great idea and I appreciate that we're doing it.
Right. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So if there's 28 Federal Way residents for 30 visits, if someone needs more than one visit, what happens?
They can come back. So this is what they're contracted for.
Okay, so it could be less than 28 residents.
Residents with a total of 30 visits, not one resident, obviously, that would be a lot of dental work. But yes, so one member may have more than one procedure.
Okay. How do people know about this program?
Through, that's a good question.
I'm not going to say that I know all of their outreach methods because this is through our competitive grant application. It's just an interlocal agreement, which is why it's here tonight. Each applicant will identify their specific outreach methods for that program. I can say that with this program, they are working closely with our homeless service providers to ensure that they have access. It is often located at the day center, but more specifics than that, I would have to follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other question?
Just a clarifying
Doby.
question. So only 28 people in Federal Way get to take advantage of this? Is that, it's visits, and a visit could be anywhere from 1 hour to whatever, if they have a root canal or whatever, but we're talking about 28 total people?
That's what they're contracted for, and so they absolutely can serve more than that.
Okay. So at $7,000, it's $233 per person. What if we have 50 people? Where's the extra money come from? Do we put more into it, or do they come back to us, or they just do it, or Or are we only, I'm just,
We are contracted only for the $7,000 per year, and the mobile van their entity will fundraise as appropriate.
okay, well, I'm just asking the question, if we decide we should have 100 people a year, I mean, how do we go about adding more money if we, or is it just, this is all we can do?
Our budgets are on the biennium, so they propose what they need for over the 2-year course, and they can, at the next grant cycle, come back and ask for additional resources. And should we have those additional resources, we, as a commissioner, would
All right.
apply.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Just for information, King County has an annual health and dental fair. It's usually in Seattle, and it's for those who are homeless or needing care and they can't afford to get the care. It's always, it's first come, first served. People line up for hours to get the services. So there's never enough. There's never enough services for people who need them, unfortunately.
They just did it about a month ago.
Yeah, I think it was about a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. If no other questions, thank you for your presentation. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, great job. I move to forward the proposed interlocal agreement to the June 20, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
And I second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Once again, carries unanimously. And next, we have, boy,
That's why they're here.
all right. All right, item J, South King Housing Partners, SKIP 2024 Work Plan and Budget. And Sarah Bridgeford, thank you.
Yes, and I'm actually going to invite Claire to the podium, and she's going to present to you this evening. Claire is, what's your executive, I want to say executive manager with SKIP, and she's going to present, she's fairly new with SKIP, so we thought it would be good for you to meet her and hear this directly from the organization. Probably. That also works. Yes. Accept. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Walsh, members of the committee, council president, a deputy mayor, and members of the council. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here this evening to present to you SKIP's 2024 work plan and budget. And so this is my first time formally presenting to you. I was here to accept the Affordable Housing Week proclamation last month, so thank you so much. All right, so SKIP was formed in 2019 through an interlocal agreement between several city governments and King County to address the housing needs of South King County as a unified, coordinated coalition, and Federal Way was a founding member. SKIP currently has 11 member jurisdictions, which are listed on the slide, and Federal Way is represented by your city administrator, Brian Davis, on the SKIP executive board. SKIP member cities are united under a common purpose and goal to ensure the availability of housing for all income levels of residents in South King County. SKIP's mission is South King County jurisdictions working together and sharing resources to create a coordinated, comprehensive, and equitable approach to increasing housing stability, reducing homelessness, and producing and preserving quality, affordable housing in South King County. Even though the executive board has taken action and approved the 2024 work plan and budget, our interlocal agreement requires that the legislative bodies of our member jurisdictions also approve the annual work plan and budget before it becomes effective. So the work plan and budget are key documents that provide guidance and serve as a roadmap for SKIP staff in the coming year. Because of the importance of this document, we spent several months developing it to ensure alignment with the SCIP board's priorities. Beginning in February of this year, the executive and advisory boards completed a survey which established their initial key priorities. We then held an interactive in-person workshop with the executive board in March, where their priorities were further refined. A draft was then developed and reviewed with the advisory board and SCIP staff work group made up of staff from each member jurisdiction, and Sarah Bridgeford serves as your representative. Suggestions and feedback were then incorporated. The draft was then presented to the executive board for their feedback and review in April, and the document was further refined. A revised draft was shared with the executive board to review with member councils as needed. And the executive board adopted the final 2024 work plan and budget at their May meeting. And we are now here at our final step, seeking concurrence on the recommendation from you. So most of the content in the work plan has been carried over from previous years. This year, our 4 goals are: fund the expansion and preservation of affordable housing, develop policies to expand and preserve affordable housing, serve as advocate for South King County, and manage operations and administration. Each goal in the work plan has corresponding actions that support the goal, and each goal has corresponding indicators that will help us know if we're achieving the goals. Priority level symbology has been added to easily see where this item lands in comparison with other items in the goal. And I won't go into details on the action items or indicators. It's a lot of information and quite lengthy, but if you're interested, you can view those in your packet. And the 2024 SCIP operating budget totals $419,159. Most of SCIP's expenses go towards the salary and benefits of 2 staff, myself included. There are no new expenditures proposed. Our 2024 budgeted expenses that are impacted by inflation are increasing 5% over this year. And these include salaries, benefits, professional services, and travel. Regarding revenues, our operating budget is funded solely from SCIP member contributions and are based on population tiers, which we'll go over on the next slide. And no member jurisdiction is moving into a new population tier this year, but the board adopted a policy in July 2021 to increase member contributions by 15% each year through 2026 to work towards a balanced budget. This means member contributions for 2024 will be 15% higher than last year, and we will look more closely at that in a couple slides. We are continuing to spend down the cost savings from the first 2 years of SCIP to balance additional contribution increases for members. So this slide shows the SCIP population tiers established in our interlocal agreement and the member contribution by year that incorporates the 15% increase each year. A caveat to this table in 2025 and 2026, if there is an interest in exploring additional staff capacity or other new expenditures, member contributions may be higher than what is listed, but that's a discussion for future years. And this table shows the state's Office of Financial Management, or OFM, population data in 2018, 2021, and 2022 by each member jurisdiction. And for the 2024 budget, I am using 2022 population data to establish which tier your jurisdiction falls into. This means that no member jurisdiction changed population tiers this year since we don't have that data from OFM for 2023 until June 30th. And as you can see, South King County is growing, including Federal Way. And here is a snapshot of the projected budget from 2023 to 2026. This assumes no new activities or expenses. You can see that we are quickly spending down our cost savings and will likely be exhausted by 2026. We'll want to ensure our fund balance is stable in order to be prepared for any emergencies. So maintaining at minimum 10% of our expenses as a fund balance is my goal in future years, and preferably closer to 25%. Your city's member contributions would be $51,710 for 2024, and this is up from $44,965 this year in 2023. And in conclusion, we are looking for your support to adopt the 2024 SCIP work plan and 2024 operating budget per our interlocal agreement requirements. with a recommendation to be placed on the consent agenda for council's consideration. So thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, Committee Member Asefa Dawson.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. Question number one is CTAC is not a member of SCIP. Is there an active recruitment to get them involved and be part of this?
Yeah, so we're actually in conversations at a staff level, and they had included a line item in their budget to explore the possibility of joining SCIP. So that is an ongoing conversation.
Okay, thank you. And then my other questions around policy and what SCIP is doing now. At some point, is it going to do something like what Arch is doing right now? Because I know that's not what SCIP is doing, but is that an opportunity in the future? And if so, when would that be?
Yeah, so I love the question. So right now, I would say, so in our work plan, we do talk about the possibility, the options to advance policies. Specifically, the board has identified a sub-regional housing preservation strategy as one of their key policy goals. So that's going to be, I think, a key focus later this year and then into next year and likely ongoing. Right now, I would say in this moment of time, we are really focused on the Housing Capital Fund. That's taking up so much staff capacity right now of just getting that going. That was, we started that last year. It was our first funding round and had our funding 2 projects with these pooled resources from all of our SCIP member jurisdictions. And so policy advancement is absolutely something that we are interested in, and the staff capacity is really the issue, and it's a matter of when that will happen. In terms of the Arch comparison, so it really depends on the board's interests and our member jurisdiction's interest if they want to move in a direction of the Arch model, which is, I would say, significantly different than SCIP. Arch serves as this kind of hub for managing all of the city's housing programs, is my understanding. You know, they manage the multifamily property tax exemption programs for their cities and such. And with 2 staff at SCIP, you know, we're sort of the convener, the facilitator. We're making sure that our South King County planners are connected to each other and helping provide that unified voice for South King County. And but the policy realm is something I am deeply committed to and can't wait to start that conversation.
Thank you.
Right. Any, Council President
So,
Kochmar.
thank you, Ms. Goodwin. This money for the 4 goals, the 4 goals are enumerated here, funding the expansion and preservation and so on. It really doesn't talk about, we're not really building anything. We're just talking about, basically, goals. You really, the money is really funding 2 people to review your goals and talk about what to do? I mean, literally, there's no money going to building anything. It's funding policy discussion. Is that right? I mean, I'm just trying to get to where the money's going.
Sure. So,
And it looked to me like Federal Way was, because it was based on population, when you had your chart up, I caught where the King County was paying the same amount of money as the City of Federal Way, which was $44,000. I was just wondering why that was.
Sure. So I'm going to start with your first comment. So the goal 1 of the work plan is to fund the expansion and preservation of affordable housing, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're not talking about it. We are actually doing that. It's our biggest, I would say, achievement to date is creating the Housing Capital Fund, which pools the sales tax credit receipts authorized by the state through Substitute House Bill 1406, and Federal Way contributes funding to that. and 8 of our 10 cities contribute that. And we're looking at pooling the House Bill 1590 funds, which is the 0.1% for affordable housing, to fund projects who need that local match, who are looking for that gap funding to create those affordable projects. And so last year, the board recommended 2 projects, and the SCIP jurisdictions approved authorization to fund two projects. One was a homeownership project of 20 units, 40% set aside for households experiencing homelessness, and a 20% set aside for households with a disability. And another was a project, 89-unit multifamily rental project. So those are projects in South King County. These are projects that really need that local funding. And so instead of each city trying to go at it on their own, we are unifying that and administering those funds, which it takes a lot of staff capacity, unfortunately. But that is I would say the one of the biggest things that SCIP does, and that is a value add, absolutely. And so in terms of the policy, right now we're I think like I kind of mentioned, the work has really been on the focus of developing the Housing Capital Fund so it can be strong, so that we can grow it year after year, so that we can fund projects. And then for the second point, your question about King County's contribution. So in the budget, it shows, so we have King County and then additional King County line items. So those total $75,000 a year, and so that's because population tiers are a little challenging. They're not a city; they're the county. They agreed early on in SCIP's early formation to contribute $75,000 towards the operating expenses to SCIP every year until one of the higher tiered cities reached about that point, and then they would revisit and continue on. So this was their way of adding additional funding capacity to assist SCIP in being successful.
Backing up just a little bit, but it still seems like that, okay, could you put the chart back up?
Yeah.
That showed the funding levels? Then I'll be,
Okay.
Which slide?
the,
County's contribution, right there.
yeah, so King County
Population.
no, with the contribution.
Go back one.
She had it, the first one.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah,
They're the same,
okay.
they're the same as us.
All right.
This one. Thank you.
Yet the population is, see, that's, with going
The
what,
second line, though, says, there's a second line for King County, additional King County.
additional King County, but it's very minimal. It's only,
So if you add those two numbers together, they'll add to 75,000.
mm-hmm. Okay.
And
And
eventually-
then go back to the population one then.
Yep.
Okay, and the King County population, 248,000, so 2.5 times, almost 2.5 times what our population is, but they're only contributing a very minimal amount more than what we are. And so it seems like there needs to be some type of adjustment there. But there's no adjustment for until later on, or what's up with that?
Yeah, so the way that,
It's a band.
Dorsal shared that the 248,000 is the entire population for unincorporated King County, not just the portion within South King. So they're using an estimate then to get to that lower now.
Okay, so do we have what it is for South King?
so I don't, because those numbers aren't formally published through the Office of Financial Management. But the original ILA laid out this number, the 111,000, is actually unincorporated South King County, but I don't have data going back past that. And so I should say, though, that the way that King County's contribution is calculated and determined isn't population-based at this point. It's strictly a commitment of $75,000, which is it's more than any of the other cities are contributing. And so it was their way of contributing additionally than the other cities. And when the point comes that other cities are contributing 75,000, that's when they'll say, all right, we'll reexamine this and determine.
Okay, yeah.
And that's a conversation I think we can have.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they should figure what the South King unincorporated population is for that. So, okay, thank you. All right.
Hey, Claire, thank you. It sounded to me like in your presentation, there's been 128 low-income houses added since you've been working on the project for 80 and 20 or whatever the numbers were. Is that about right? Or 100 plus?
109 units.
109 units, so that's great, congratulations. How does, you got all these cities going, how do you determine where your assistant's gonna go? I mean, I don't know where the 100 plus were, but that's great, that's a good start, but how does it move around the whole area? Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
So-
be great to know.
Sure. So both of those projects were actually in Burien.
I don't care where they're at.
Sure, okay.
I just want to, if somebody come from Federal Way and they got a great idea, they come to you and you evaluate them and say, hey, this is one we're going to work this time, or how does that work?
Sure. So we develop Housing Capital Fund guidelines. So a developer or a nonprofit, maybe that is also a developer, a community land trust nonprofit, even a local government can apply for SCIP funds. And we have evaluation criteria and we have funding priorities that are adopted by the executive board. One of those funding priorities is geographic equity, meaning, if they were in one city last year, if there are projects that are applying that are elsewhere, that's a serious consideration.
So next year, Burien probably wouldn't get it and somebody else would because they already have one. Is that kind of how it works?
Let's hope that we have enough interest in applicants applying. So part of that is, getting the word out that this new funding is even available. And so, I'm shouting it from the rooftops in public funders meetings with Department of Commerce and King County, just letting people know that we're here, we have funding, because that's, if people don't know we're here, then.
I don't mean to interrupt, but how much funding is there?
Yeah.
How much funding does people not know about that's out there?
So this year with the Substitute House Bill 1406 revenue, we're looking at pooling just over $1 million. And then there's the potential to pool the House Bill 1590 funds, the 0.1%, which is significantly more funding. And that could be, if we're successful this year, it could be upwards of $5 million.
And it continues every year? It's $1 million this year, it
Yep.
could be $1 million next year, because it's in the House bills?
So the funding that you all contribute to, the 1406, is estimated to pool $1 million every year. And then the 1590 would be, I think it's about $4 million a year.
Okay, so one last question there. So your job really is to go out and find developers that don't know that this money is available to help the people that need the money to make affordable housing do deals. Is that kind of?
I would say that's a small component
Okay.
of my role, yes.
Okay, well, you got a lot of things to do, but, part of it is finding people that take advantage of the money and build okay. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Two questions. I have,
Yes, go ahead.
so with the Senate bill, how much is the money again?
With the Senate, the 1406 funds? or-
1406 is 1 million.
Yep, 1 million. And then if we're successful in pooling, and these are preliminary conversations, but the 1590 funds, about $5 million.
Okay. So the city of Auburn, do they charge for office space, or is it still in-kind donation?
Yeah, so office space is an in-kind donation. And then we pay, the SCIP budget, they charge us a 10% administration fee, which includes, you know, all of the internal services. You know, when I'm working with their finance department to set up, you know, the accounting components, and working with their legal team for, you know, interlocal agreement, you know, legal advice and things like that. So that's that contribution.
And they still pay their share also, right?
Correct.
They okay, just asking. Thank you.
All right. Anything, any other questions? Yes, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin. So I'm trying to understand. So is there a counterpart like you, East King County?
So the Arch is the
Arch is the counterpart.
similar, yeah.
Okay, so basically, if you did not exist, let's say, and these bills were passed, how would anybody, like a developer, know to access that money? Or a city or whatever who wanted to build?
So
something?
if SCIP weren't pooling the resources, I think each city would need to determine how they would administer the funds.
So the two bills that were passed this year, and I'm assuming there were other bills passed in previous years, correct?
I'm not sure which bills you're referring to.
You're talking about two bills right now. One is 1 million, one is 5 million that were just passed. That's obviously 1/10 of 1%, sounds like a tax, some kind of a tax.
I should clarify, I'm so sorry. Those bills were passed in 2019, 2020. So they're now just, cities have collected the revenue that those bills authorized and allowed cities to. And the substitute House Bill 1406 passed back in 2020. All the cities collect that right now, and that's the funds that your city pools with the other SCIP member jurisdictions for the Housing Capital Fund. But the operating budget and the work plan are separate from that we're talking about.
So I'm still trying to understand. So SCIP is like an administrative arm that's been formed that takes money from the neighboring South King County cities, correct? 44,000 from, or more, 45,000 from the city of Federway. And now it's going to be 51,700 according to your chart. So so that money goes for your administration, but the money from the housing, from the tax or the pool, it's separate. So how much do I know that's coming to our city, for example, out of that fund?
Yeah, for the Housing Capital Fund? Yeah, so that is, we developed that through a separate interlocal agreement, which Federal Way is party to. And every year we come and present on the projects that the executive board recommended. And so I'd be happy to get you
Sure, I'm just
more
trying to
information.
understand how much would be the city of Federway's amount.
Yeah.
Maybe Sarah knows that. And beyond that, I guess go ahead, Sarah.
Well, the amount of the tax collected will vary year to year, and I think it was somewhere in the realm of like 130. How much? But that was over multiple years, so about 130 or so, and I'll get you the exact
year.
amount per year.
Per year.
That then goes into the Housing Capital
Into
Fund.
the fund that South King County SCIP administers. Okay.
Yes.
So have we ever received anything back from that? I understand it's only been a couple of years, but, I mean, I don't know if there were previous years or something new, or,
The Housing Capital, last year was the first year with the Housing Capital Fund.
Okay.
So that was the first time that applications were solicited and received and recommendations made for projects. That did come before council for approval for the use of our funds. And we would expect to see that continue. So Claire spoke to geographic equity, and as this goes on, we hope to see projects that are throughout the South King region.
Thank you, Jack.
So, one last question. So, to sum up what Linda just said, as a cities, we're all pooling our money together, and the first rounds of money went to build places in Burien, which is fine with me, but that's how it gets done. You find the best projects, you pool it. We were all able to help 100 and some odd people in Burien. Maybe it'd be 100 some people in Auburn next year. You know, maybe 200 someday in Federal Way, but that's kind of how it works, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not, okay, thank you. Does that clear that up?
I'm just trying to make sure we get our share of the pool.
Yeah, every 13 years we should.
And I'm trying to understand what it is they're building. For example, what was built in Burien?
Yeah, so it funded a 20-unit home ownership project, which is going to maintain affordability for, I think it's 100 years, or in perpetuity, actually. So these are permanently affordable homes that low-income home, folks are going to be moving into and living in. So, and it encompasses folks from income brackets from 0% AMI, so no income, all the way up to 60% area median income.
What were those, condos or single-family or duplexes, or what type of homes were they?
So the Habitat for Humanity is home ownership. They should be a mix of duplexes and townhomes. And then for the multifamily, the 89 unit, it'll be a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom apartments that are available for families.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Councilmember Seth Dawson.
Are we good? Okay. Thank you so much. I moved forward the proposed SKIP 2024 work plan and budget to the June 2023 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It carries unanimously. Right. Next, let's see, trying to make it so I don't need to scroll the way up and down here to see what's, all right, item K, King County Regional Agreement Opioid Abatement Council Interlocal Agreement. And Sarah, once again.
Good evening. I will be presenting the King County Regional Agreement, or Opioid Abatement Council Interlocal Agreement. There's a typo. Sorry about that. Should City Council approve the King County Regional Agreement Opioid Abatement Council Interlocal Agreement, is the policy question before you. And what this is in follow-up to the class action litigation regarding opioids. The city was a party to those class action settlements. There have been 2 settlements so far, of which 50% of the funding is going to the state, and 50% to counties and local governments, of which 26% is coming to King County and local cities within King County. The Federal Way portion of those settlement funds is 0.3%. So it ends up being a fairly small amount. And those funds can change on an annual basis based on the amount of funds that are recouped in those settlements. So for instance, last year, we received a total of just over $49,000. And the estimate that we've received is that it will be a little bit less this year. So again, that fluctuation will occur. As that money starts to come in, we are looking at the requirements of the settlement. And one of those requirements is the development of an opioid abatement council. And that council must cover the county area. So the agreement before you is the interlocal that would establish the Opioid Abatement Council, or OAC, for King County. Representation on the OAC will be based on the funding level received from the settlement funds. So in this case, King County would have 2 reps, Seattle 1, and then 1 representative for the remainder of the cities, so 24 jurisdictions total. This seat would be appointed by the Sound Cities Association, as many of those types of committees are. And then just noting that on an annual basis, there is an administrative fee for the OAC or that council, and that is no more than 10% of the settlement funds that the city would receive. Those funds will actually be collected at the start of the year, and then a true-up would happen at the end, so that no city or jurisdiction is paying more than 10% of actual settlement funds received. The proposal in the MOU is for the use of the real estate excise tax funds, and part of that is based on how the settlement funds work, but there is a provision that can allow any jurisdiction to have an alternate arrangement for paying those funds. Tonight, we're not deciding on what option the city would use for paying those funds. This is a fairly quick turnaround on this interlocal, so we would be coming back with a proposal both on how to cover the admin as well as to discuss priorities. There are 11 pages of approved uses for the funds. So we would go through a prioritization process and then a process for using those funds in the community and for the purposes that are allowed. And those 2 items will come later. This is just to try to enter into the interlocal by July 1st. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
For the, so SCA will be appointing someone. Did they not appoint someone already to this? Was it a person from the city of Auburn?
This council hasn't been established. I've not heard that there are appointments that were made. This interlocal would be establishing that council. They may have talked about the appointment process.
Okay, I might have misread that.
I'll follow up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Sure. I moved forward the proposed agreement to the June 20, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
I second the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And next, item L, security for, whoops, what happened here? Security for parks and facilities, and you do not look like Autumn.
I am not nearly as good looking as she is.
No, indeed.
Much hairier, too. So.
All
With
right.
that being said, thank you, Councilmember Walsh, Deputy Mayor Honda, and Council President Kochmar, and council members. And then there was one. Got the final 3 items on the agenda tonight. And so the policy question before you is, should the city council approve the contract with Pierce County Security and authorize the mayor to enter into a contract? This is a very general and basic security contract. We have since 2006 or 7 contracted to have our parks locked up in the evening and secured. They lock the parking lot gates and all of that. And so over the years, we have added some parks, but any park that has a bathroom or a gate, Pierce County Security is the one we are looking to award. We did go out for a competitive bid process. Pierce County Security was our previous contractor, and they came in as the low bidder again. And so happy to have a continuation of services. Their services are excellent. They've always met our needs. Not only is this the locking of the parks and that, they do also have a contingent in there for overnight security. So like we set up Red, White, and Blues Festival, have it all on the field. We have a security member out there that watches that overnight. We pour some concrete or something like that we want to have eyes on. We can do that. Does need advanced planning, but again, security services. And so with that being said, I'd entertain any questions you may have.
Right. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So they lock the restrooms and the parking lots, then they come and unlock them in the morning?
No,
Or
not,
staff
o-
does?
only 2 sites do they unlock them in the morning, and those 2 sites are Dumas Bay Sanctuary Park, because it's way on the far end side of town, and Panther Lake is the other one. Panther Lake tends to get some early morning walkers, and our staff doesn't start till 6:30. But although they arrive on site at 6:30, it's usually about a 30-minute brief in the morning to kind of get directions, relay information, and so 7 o'clock was not an adequate time we were finding, and so their cost is really minimal. It equals out to about $2 at a turn of the key. And so how they afford to do what they do, sometimes I question, but they've been a great service to us. And so Panther Lake and Dumas Bay Sanctuary, the 2 parks that are open, the rest are open by city staff. The one park that also has a real contingent as far as time to be open in the morning is French Lake Dog Park. And council agreed with the neighbors when that was established as an off-leash dog park, that 7 a.m. was the earliest we would open that one. And so generally we kick one of the seasonals out by 6:45 to make sure that gets opened at 7. We do miss that mark on occasion, and a little more occasion than I would prefer, but that's due to priorities. But the active users of French Lake Park let us know about that, and we have actually solicited a volunteer that comes on a regular basis, that if for some reason staff hasn't made it, she unlocks the gate for us and then reports those as volunteer hours.
So if they have a security, if this group has a security issue within a park, they will call the,
So if
911.
it's an immediate security issue, they will call police,
Okay.
dispatch police, and then they also have, they reach out to AmeriCall, who is our after-hours call service, and if it warrants it, they will ask for a dispatch of park staff to deal with an issue.
oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Right. All right. Do we have a motion?
Sure. I move to forward the proposed agreement to the June 20, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
I second the motion. It's been approved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. And carry on with item M, Parks, Recreation, Open Space Plan, Pros, Update Brook Lake and Steel Lake Master Plans.
Okay, so the policy question here is, should the city council allocate $266,376 of King County levy money to fund an update of the PROS plan, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, additionally to fund a master plan of Steel Lake Park and a separate master plan of Brook Lake Park? The 2 individual park master plans have been on the Parks Commission work plan since 2017 and have gone unfunded. The PROS plan was last updated in 2019. We have a 6-year requirement to update that plan to remain eligible for grant funding through RCO as the major grant funder out there. And so we do everything we can to stay in compliance with RCO. This update is coming about 1.5 to 2 years early. And that was a strategic decision made by staff and City Administrator Brian Davis in regards to syncing up the comp plan and the PROS plan. We previously have not had a Parks chapter in our comp plan, and so part of this update will serve as the new Parks chapter in our comprehensive plan. And so the original goal was to get this on the books and be having this presentation to you back in February. We've had some difficulties with the slide project that has distracted from that, and a few other priorities that have not allowed staff to get that completed until now. What I can tell you is we are looking at a fairly aggressive schedule. There will be a lot of community outreach on all 3 plans, and the goal would be to expedite as much as we can, but you're looking at at least a 6 to 8 month process. We're hoping to maybe bring these to conclusion in February, but I think that's a little aggressive because Again, we were originally supposed to bring this to you in February, then I was supposed to have it to you last month, and just now getting it to you here in June. So the attached schedule is a little off base right now, but we wanted to make sure it got through the approval process. We'll reach back out to the consultant to revise that schedule. The comp plan isn't due till the end of 2024, so that still gives us a respectable amount of time to get that completed and be included as that chapter. In regards to the two master plans, like I say, long overdue. There's been a lot of community thoughts and inputs coming on both Brook Lake property and the Steel Lake property. The maintenance shop precipitated a bunch of that discussion, but they're overdue and need to be done. And so with that being said, I would entertain any questions.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. I just want to say how excited I am to have a master plan for Steel Lake and for Brook Lake. I think it's, as you said, past due, and it'll benefit the city a great deal, so.
I'm pleased to hear that, and we're going to need your support to get that outreach and get as many people in attendance as possible so that we solicit good feedback and a good cross-section of the community and have a better understanding of what the community wants us to do with those properties.
Councilmember Asif Dawson.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think you're going to have any problem getting people to come and participate in that conversation.
Fingers crossed.
But with that, 266,376, as time goes, is that number going to increase, and do we have a contingency, or?
So right now, contingency is built in, and based on kind of, the two master plans are going to be a series of 3 meetings, being kind of the first meeting, and I'm just going to use Brook Lake as an example, will be a brainstorming session in the community. Hopefully, we would do that on site and just get everything that sticks to the wall. The second meeting would be, the consultant would come back with like 3 alternatives. We would review those alternatives with the community. What do we love about them? What do we hate about them? What do we want to see shifted? What do we want to see merged? Then that third meeting is mostly just an unveiling, because between staff, council, and committees, we will take that and finalize that last design, and that last design would be the adopted master plan. Then hence that master plan will also roll into the pros plan. So I mean, all of these have got to work lockstep together, and like I say, we're on a pretty aggressive timeline, so.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Jason. Do I have a motion?
Yes, you do. I moved forward approval of allocating King County levy funds and entering into a professional service agreement to the June 20, 2023 consent agenda.
I second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. And on to the last item, the,
It doesn't require anything.
yeah, and it's, let's see here.
It's an informational update.
Informational
on
item on the lockers.
The Federal Way Community Center locker rooms.
Go ahead.
And so, tell you, I'm disappointed. We are working on a pool project, and a pool project that's gone too long, and trying to get that wrapped up. But as we've been working through this pool project and spending a lot more time in the community center, it became apparent to staff that we needed to investigate the locker rooms. The locker rooms are in a deteriorating condition. From a facility manager standpoint, it's a little embarrassing. But I can tell you it's not for a lack of effort from the 2 custodians and 1 maintenance worker that we have to maintain that facility. So based on the conditions, I had concerns, health department concerns. Are we safe, and is this a safe and healthy environment to have people where, you know, we can, in the Parks Department, we consider the community center, it's our health and wellness mecca. That's our place where we go, and that's where the community has to go. And it wasn't fitting of the facility we know and love, and it doesn't show a lot of pride and care. But like I say, this This is beyond maintenance concerns. This is deterioration of the actual conditions in the building. So we kind of looked to get at the budget and scraped together $5,000 and tried to get the best assessment we could on the locker rooms. And what I would say is we hired the Rock Consultant Group, and they gave us big bang for our buck. The inspection and report that they gave us in the locker rooms could have been charged a lot more money for that report. But as hopefully you've all seen in those pictures and reviewed in the report, we got a lot of work to do. And the main problem with the locker rooms is the wet condition and the chlorine environment. And it's wreaking havoc on a lot of the bones of the facility, and especially the locker room. I think a contributing factor to this, as noted in the report, is the mechanical system, being the HVAC, maybe not being sized properly in those locker rooms. There is no dehumidification or any devices like that, and if you've ever walked in those locker rooms, they are always wet. That environment should have more to get that water out. Over time, that water penetrates the grout and just seeps into the bones. So can't say the ceilings and all of that is in good shape, but we would need to look at upping that HVAC system and doing more to be able to dry it out and not have the permeation and the duration of saturation or water saturation in those locker rooms. So as we look farther, you go back and you pull back some layers. We had a shower that was out of service, and that was one of the areas that we used as an inspection kind of hole. And I mean, we have steel studs that are rotted and are no longer connected to your base piece. And so we did find some stuff where, in my mind, in a wet environment, in a bathroom, locker room condition, you would use cement board for your wall board. It was gypsum board, sheetrock behind there, and so that takes on water where concrete does not. And so if you start to get that permeating through the grout and then keeping the gypsum wet and getting that fully dried out, it probably never occurred. And so it's in bad shape. And one thing I do want to put out there is that be happy to take any of you on a tour of those locker rooms at any time and show you what we're looking at here. I can tell you a lot of that building is CMU block. The CMU block seems to be, has its integrity, no problems there. What you are seeing on the CMU block from the chlorine environment, you get a buildup of those salts, and so you're seeing some bubbling of the paint in that. But that can be remedied fairly easy compared to some of the shower facilities, a lot of the tile, the flooring, all of that sort of thing. So that leaves us at kind of three spots. What are we going to do about this? And, first one's easy. You do nothing and you continue to let it deteriorate. You're going to lose members and you may get shut down by the health department. Find some sort of interim solution. Can you remediate it, just get it back presentable, make it healthy and safe, until we can come up and determine a larger plan for renovating those locker rooms. Last solution would be is fix them. Just you get in there and go through it and fix them. And so I can tell you staff is working with City Administrator Brian Davis, Finance Director Steve Groom, and we are close to having some options on funding plans for this. Not prepared to talk to funding tonight. It's strictly informational, and we're hoping to bring that to FedRAC committee at the tail end of this month with kind of one of those, what those financials look like and what kind of our options are and what those would cost and what it would look like. So I can tell you that City Administrator Davis has requested, since I've done a assessment of just the locker rooms, he said, shouldn't we be doing an assessment of the entire building?
Yes.
And so he has directed us to do that complete assessment of the whole building. To me, I think we're going to get some information, we're going to get that, but I think we're fairly aware of what we may see from this full assessment. You're getting 15 years old, so the roof's probably going to need some stuff. HVAC, 15 years old, you're going to, a few things here and there. But as far as peeling back and seeing what we saw in the locker rooms, in other areas of the building, you're not having those issues. And so there's nothing showing itself, so we may get no information, we may get some good information or stuff that we have not seen, but it's still worthwhile to go through that full assessment. Like I say, the problems in the locker room are very clear, they're presenting themselves, and you can't miss them. But like I say, the full assessment, we're still gonna go through. I just don't know what will come of that. Could be a real shocker, fingers crossed, we get some good news that the rest of the building is in good shape. So with that being said, informational only, I'd be happy to answer any questions I could, but it's unfortunately I'm the bearer of bad news, and we've got to do some repairs there at some point.
Councilmember Steph Dawson.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up as information, because at least it prepares us. And the project management services is outsourced, so
Correct.
staff is not going to be involved in this whole process.
So that's where we are at our capacity right now. Parks Department had requested a parks planner or a capital projects manager in the 23-24 budget. That went unfunded, and so essentially a combination of myself, Autumn Gressett, and George Richin, who's the parks manager, we share duties of these capital project management. And with the pool project, we've got several other projects going on. We're at capacity and don't have the capacity. So yeah, we are going to be looking in this funding plan to recommend that we hire the ROC group to manage this project. Now, we'll also have to enter into a contract with an architect. We're going to need to have an architect draw up and design the work that needs to be done. ROC will work with us on that group, but we will hold the contract with the architect, and we control that portion. Then once we have determined what that scope, what all those major repairs will be, we will hire the ROC to hold whatever bidder gets the work to make sure they do it to the appropriate standard that the architect has designed.
Okay, so with the pool issue and now this, I'm glad you're saying that maybe look at the whole facility and look at its integrity. Would it require at some point to just shut down the community center and do all the work?
So that is absolutely what we do not want to do. We have, we're at a peak membership right now. The members are using it actively, and so what we're going to try to recommend is a phased approach to it, and that would be something, for example, we shut down the women's locker room, work on that one. That way, women and others can use the cabana area, and the men's would still have their locker room, and then rotate through that way. That way, we still can have the facility open, but be getting the work done. We had contemplated and explored bringing in portable restrooms and portable showers and that sort of thing. That did not seem very desirable and felt like a high potential to upset the members and potentially lose membership. And we're on a membership roll that we are, and the community is so vested in this facility that we didn't feel that that was a viable option.
Thank you.
All right. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So when I saw some of these pictures, I think it was last Friday, I was pretty shocked. And I'm certainly glad that the whole building will be examined. I guess my next concern is the kitchen and how the kitchen is holding up and what might need to be done there. So the building's only 15 years old. Is this something that you would have ever expected, or is this the way it was constructed? And if it was the way it was constructed, why is this happening? Between the pool and this and whatever else is going to be found potentially, the building isn't very old. I mean, if this was happening in my home and my home was only 15 years old, I would be extremely upset with the builder.
Yep.
Because this is just not acceptable.
I don't disagree with you at all.
So what happened? Was the building rushed? Was it built? I wasn't around, I wasn't here on council when this construction was being done, but how did we get here?
And so I can tell you I was here during construction. I was not at a level where I was involved in the construction or management. The design and plans were approved before I was hired. I did have a couple walkthroughs while the building was being constructed, and that was in the very infancy of my tenure with City of Federal Way. I mentioned the gypsum or sheetrock that was behind the showers. Absolutely what I would not expect in regards to construction standards for a locker room or a bathroom. I would expect a cement board, which isn't going to rot. It's designed to hold up against water. And so to pinpoint and give you an exact answer, I can't do that tonight, Councilwoman. But I can tell you that I do know that there was some litigation involved, and there was a settlement reached at the conclusion construction, and I know there was some disagreements with the builder. What the specificity of all those were, I'm not privy to. I can tell you that we have looked, and we've had staff look, and we've had the city clerk try to pull boxes, and the legal team trying to figure out what the specifics of that was. It has not been located at this point, and it's been a pretty exhaustive search. And so with that being said, unfortunately, I'm the messenger. I'm coming with the bad news. I don't necessarily have all those answers. I'm curious about it myself, because like you say, this is our community center. This is our health mecca here, and 15 years is too quick for those. Now, what I can tell you is we are a high chlorine environment. Chlorine degrades things in a bad way. That, I believe, is your major contributing factor to the decline in the pool and the locker rooms. And that's where I mentioned the HVAC not being adequate. To me, like I say, we're going to have to look at a redesign of that and how we do that, but also it's about the moisture and dehumidification. Now, something I'm not versed in right now, but is there a way to dechlorinize the air? That's something I'm not aware of, and is there that ability, and does that help you preserve your pool? I don't know. It's all questions I have and things that we're trying to work through to better understand this, so that when we rebuild these locker rooms, we're not coming back in another 15 years and having to rebuild them again. My goal would be for them to last longer than that, but that's also something I want to talk to the architect about. What is our expectation for the lifespan of the pool and a locker room environment? And when you think about the numbers that go through there, it's a lot of people served. It's not billions and billions like the burger stand, but we serve a lot of people, and like I say, you go in there, it's wet all the time, and know that we're open darn near 16 hours a day at the community center, and swimming's open the whole time, and so it's all day long, and it's permeating, and so things that you could do to help minimize that, you can seal the grout, so the grout, the water's not permeating through the grout and then hitting the other things. But again, maintenance has been a weakness for the Parks and Facilities Department. We haven't historically had enough people, and so that's what it's a little bit of a compounding of deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance catches up with you. The one that I like that John uses all the time is, you can drive your car all day for years and years and never change the oil, but eventually you're going to replace that engine a lot sooner than if you did change the oil, right? And unfortunately, we've got so many priorities and so many facilities that we aren't dedicating enough money to maintenance. But even all the maintenance in the world, I don't know, would have relieved the issues that are going on here because of the high chlorine environment. And like I say, that's something I still need to better understand myself.
So did I hear you right when you said you're looking for the litigation? and what-
Yes, staff, legal, city clerk, we've reached out with all of them, and we're trying to get those documents. They have not been located at this time.
I think
We
that's-
believe, excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting. We don't believe that the builder, the original builder, has any liability anymore.
Okay,
That's the best we can come up with, that we accepted the building with a small settlement, mostly on landscape, I believe. That's all we can really track down at this point. And so it's our problem. Unfortunately, we can't go back after the builder. And to reiterate what Jason said, there are some real flaws in how they constructed those locker rooms. We have 1,500 people a day through the front doors. Jason's exactly right. The swimming starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, or 5:30 in the morning, and it goes till close. And you get people in those showers. It's very wet. It's very humid. And there was some real issues with materials. I don't know how that got through the process, honestly. Like Jason, I was absolutely with the department when it opened, but I was not in a real leadership role at that point. And unfortunately, the wet areas in the building, the pool, the other pool is in excellent condition. The lap pool is in excellent condition. The leisure pool, the one we're doing the slide on, real problems there, and a lot of that appears to be original workmanship, along with the locker rooms. The wet areas are taking a beating. The dry areas, you go to the gym, it's pristine. If you go to the community rooms, it's pristine. The hallways, the weight room, the track, that's all in great shape. The wet areas are where we're experiencing these problems. And the wet areas, obviously the pools, you know it's going to be more damage because it's wet. Anything and you're absolutely right, Deputy Mayor, that yeah, if our homes were like this, but our homes don't have 1,500 people a day in them either. We know it's a public facility. It should have been built better. And we're experiencing a real downfall in what looks like really poor workmanship. And I was there from the time it opened in 2007. It's actually been 16 years. I was there, and I can tell you, we dedicate every bit of maintenance we can to those locker rooms. Heavy, heavy maintenance. The most we can do within our constraints. I just want to really point out what Jason said and emphasize it, that this is not because we didn't take care of it. It's falling apart because of poor workmanship, not because we didn't make every single effort.
In the locker rooms, with it being gypsum board rather than concrete board, do we know, was that the builder or was that the architect that specified, or do we know that?
I honestly don't know. I mean, it makes sense that you do hardy board or green board or the concrete board. That is just, seems like that's the standard today.
Yeah.
Everybody expects that in a bathroom, whether it's a home bathroom or a commercial bathroom. You would just expect that. I'm not sure how that honestly happened.
I'm not trying to find fault with anyone.
I understand
Just-
totally.
I'm just really shocked.
Oh, it's
I wouldn't have-
disappointing.
I wouldn't have ever expected this, and
Well, and something.
it's a relatively young building. I mean, we expect buildings to last for 50-plus years, so.
The other thing is, when we were designing that building, I know there was exponentially more storage. We built it and we wanted to build something more than we had money for, and so we value engineered it, or we reduced some things. And so did it occur in that process? Was that a cost-saving measure? Like I said, these are all questions we have, but I don't know that I'm ever going to have answers for you because I got a job to do and my phone's ringing off the hook. And so I can spend my time researching a why, or I can get this thing, work at getting this thing fixed. And that's where, staff is focusing their attention and their energy.
Councilmember Dovey.
Thank you for your report. We've all been around gyms and wet places, and they always are the worst place in a gym. So it doesn't surprise me. Maybe it would have been 20 years or 15, but, we got a problem. We got to do something with it. But my question is, you talk about, you had in the budget a project planner or something, and we didn't approve that person. How much are we going to spend for this consultant to be our project manager?
Right now, you're
I mean,
look-
ballpark. I don't have the thing in front.
right now, in this proposal, they give us three methods for.
Is it 100,000? Is it 50?
We're looking at about 85,000, Mr.
So
Dooley.
why don't we hire our own? I mean, ask the council to throw some more money in and get the staff person instead of hiring some consultant.
And I'm absolutely, I like your thinking,
I mean,
Councilmember
it's not gonna
Dovey.
be, if we're gonna pay 85,000 for somebody for a partial, we're gonna have to fix this. I don't know how we do it, but we're gonna have to do it. But, you know, for an extra 30,000, or I don't know what a person costs, but why aren't we thinking about, you know, 80, if we're gonna spend 85, you got loaded costs, you throw some more in. This is gonna cost us $1.5 million, $2 million bucks, I'm sure. So why don't we just think about getting this person to do it, that our person, instead of somebody that's a consultant?
We absolutely love that idea. We have needed that. We had, the title was park planner, but it's really, they wear many hats, this person that we envision and that we've had. They not only research and write grants successfully, which saves us money down the road, they run these projects from start to finish. We called them a park planner in the past, and we've had several of them in our city's history. We lost them in about 2008.
Downturn of the economy.
Yeah, 2008, and we haven't had one since. But we have so many projects, as Jason mentioned on the deferred maintenance side. There are major projects between, the turf is one at Celebration Park. That needs project management. The HVAC, the new roofs, all of the things that we know are coming. So I love your suggestion, Councilman.
I mean, we should think about it instead of
Yeah.
just one-time money. I mean, we'll have to budget it and get in the next biennium and things like that, but we're getting a start here. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And maybe it's time to go back to Brian and the mayor and
Well, and I
have
can
that.
tell-
I
I'm
think
sure,
the
I'm sure this is
council-
gonna come out of ARPA money or something like that, so. I mean,
Well, and I can tell you.
Anyway.
I can
so-
tell you what City Administrator Davis's thought process was. He is looking for a way to fund this position in the '24 budget, but as we were going through the budget process, we were looking at implementing park impact fees. Now that, thanks to your help and all your support, we have park impact fees. He wanted to let those grow over a little bit of period of time and then hire based on that. We've got enough projects that now is the time. But like I say, we'd be happy for that now. To me, if you look at what the potential, if we were to do all the repairs complete and thoroughly, as the ROC suggests, I can tell you that it feels like $85,000 is a very good deal. And so maybe if we were to hire a capital projects manager, you still use this consulting group as a lead into it. But I understand your thriftiness.
I kind of look at it
Councilmember.
either or.
Sure.
It's not both.
Understood.
Suggestion, we both? I'm just kidding.
That's a mile too far.
Well, whatever we can do, I mean, we've been hearing for years we need to maintain what we have, and I don't disagree with that. So however we can help get to that point where we have our properties maintained so that they hold up better, we need to do.
Question.
Council President.
So, back to ARPA funds and the money we're going to be using for this, which needs to be done. It's going to be, what, you suggested 1.7 million in your
That's the.
documents, probably may or maybe more. So that pretty much kills the turf fields at Celebration Park. But, so how do we get back to getting soccer fields 5 and 6, which is where we have the 4th of July, getting those back on an agenda so we get turf fields in there?
And
which
that's,
I
will
believe
save
there's
the
some.
money for the city.
There's an interest in doing both. We know we have to do the locker rooms, and we know we want to do the turf, and we'd like to do both, because both are going to help the city tremendously. So I think that we're working through some things, and I think that'll be presented to you soon by City Administrator Davis.
Okay. And I just want people to understand, if there, anybody listening, that it's not an expenditure, it's a way to save money because of the maintenance. And you can see.
And drive revenue. Yes.
And you would
direct
get more revenue coming in, absolutely.
Not only direct revenue to the city of Federal Way, but indirect revenue through people staying in hotels and things like that.
Thank you.
All right. No further questions. I think that is
Thank you, council.
it. Thank you. And, all right. So I don't think there's any other business. Our next meeting will be July 11th at 5 PM right here. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned at 7:40. So anyway.